Marcus Thompson sat on the edge of his bed in the small Detroit apartment. The clock on the wall showed 3:17 a.m. He had been awake for 2 hours now. Sleep did not come easy anymore. It had not come easy for 3 years. Rex lifted his big head from the floor. The German shepherd's dark eyes watched Marcus carefully. The dog knew something was wrong. Rex always knew. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. It was getting long now. He had not cut it in weeks. There was no point. He did not go anywhere that mattered. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of cars passing on the street below. 3 tours in Afghanistan. That was what Marcus had given to his country. 3 long years of sand, heat, and fear. 3 years of watching friends get hurt. 3 years of never knowing if today would be his last day alive. He had come home a hero, they said. People thanked him for his service. They shook his hand and smiled. But none of them understood what it was like to wake up every night thinking about the things he had seen. None of them knew what it felt like to jump every time a car backfired or a door slammed too hard. Rex got up and walked over to Marcus. The dog put his heavy head on Marcus's knee. This was what Rex had been trained to do. He could tell when Marcus was having bad thoughts. The dog's warm weight helped Marcus feel better. Marcus scratched behind Rex's ears. "Just you and me, boy," he said quietly. "Just you and me." The apartment felt too small. It had 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen that was barely big enough for 1 person. Marcus had rented it when he came back from his last tour. He thought it would be temporary. That was 2 years ago. The walls were bare except for 1 photo. It showed Marcus with his army unit before their last mission. 12 men smiled at the camera. Only 8 of them made it home. Marcus was one of the lucky ones, people said. He did not feel lucky. On the dresser sat a small wooden box. Inside was a Purple Heart medal. Marcus had been hurt by a bomb blast during his 2nd tour. The doctors said he was brave. They gave him the medal for getting wounded while serving his country. Marcus kept the medal in the box. He never looked at it. His phone buzzed. A text message from his sister in California. "Hope you're doing okay. Call me soon." Marcus deleted the message without answering. He did not want to talk to anyone. What would he say? That he could not sleep? That he could not keep a job? That sometimes he forgot what day it was? Rex moved closer and leaned against Marcus's leg. The dog weighed almost 90 pounds. He was big and strong but gentle. Rex had been trained by the army to help soldiers like Marcus. The dog could tell when Marcus was getting upset. He could wake Marcus up from bad dreams. He could even bring Marcus his medicine when he forgot to take it. Marcus remembered the day he got Rex. It was at a military hospital in Germany. Marcus had been hurt and was getting better. A woman brought Rex to meet him. She said the dog would help him feel better. Marcus did not believe her at first. How could a dog help with the nightmares? How could a dog make the memories go away? But Rex did help. Not by making the bad memories disappear. Rex helped by being there, by never leaving, by always knowing when Marcus needed him most. Marcus looked around the apartment. Empty pizza boxes sat on the counter. Dirty clothes were piled in the corner. He had not cleaned in weeks. He had not done much of anything in weeks. The only reason he got up most days was to feed Rex and take him for walks. The VA hospital had doctors who wanted to help. Marcus went to meetings where other soldiers talked about their problems. Some of the soldiers seemed to be getting better. They talked about finding new jobs or going back to school. Marcus just sat and listened. He did not have much to say. Dr. Martinez was Marcus's counselor. She was a nice woman who asked a lot of questions. She wanted to know how Marcus was feeling. She wanted to know about his dreams. She gave Marcus pills to help him sleep and pills to help him not feel so sad. The pills helped a little, but not enough. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. The street below was empty except for a few cars. Street lights made yellow circles on the sidewalk. Detroit was not the same city Marcus remembered from when he was a kid. Many of the houses were empty now. Many of the stores were closed. The city felt as broken as Marcus did. He thought about his ex-wife, Jennifer. She had left during his 2nd tour. She said she could not handle being married to a soldier anymore. She said she was tired of being scared all the time. Marcus did not blame her. Being married to him had not been easy. Rex walked over to his food bowl and looked back at Marcus. The dog was hungry. Marcus realized he had forgotten to feed Rex dinner. He had forgotten a lot of things lately. Marcus opened a can of dog food and filled Rex's bowl. The dog ate quietly while Marcus watched. At least Rex was happy. The dog did not worry about tomorrow or think about yesterday. Rex just lived in the moment. Marcus's disability check came every month. It was enough money to pay rent and buy food. It was enough to live on, but not enough to really live. Marcus had thought about getting a job, but every interview went badly. He would start sweating when they asked questions. His hands would shake. He would make excuses and leave. The doctor said this was normal. She said many soldiers had trouble when they first came home. She said it would get better with time. But Marcus had been home for 2 years now. He did not feel any better. Rex finished eating and came back to sit next to Marcus. The dog's tail wagged slowly. Rex was always happy to be close to Marcus. It did not matter if Marcus was sad or angry or scared. Rex just wanted to be near him. Marcus looked at the clock again. 4:30 a.m. In a few hours, the sun would come up. Another day would start. It would be just like yesterday and the day before that. Marcus would walk Rex. He would eat something. He would watch TV or stare at the wall. Then night would come again and he would lie in bed waiting for sleep that might not come. But tonight felt different somehow. Marcus was tired of living this way. He was tired of being afraid. He was tired of being alone except for Rex. Something needed to change. He just did not know what. Marcus could not sleep again. It was 3 weeks since that night when he decided things needed to change. But nothing had changed. He still woke up at strange hours. He still felt empty inside. He still did not know what to do with his life. Rex was sleeping on the floor next to the bed. The dog's breathing was slow and steady. At least one of them could sleep peacefully. Marcus got up and walked to his old laptop. He had bought it years ago, before the army. It was slow and the screen had a crack in the corner, but it still worked. He opened it and waited for it to start up. He did not know what he was looking for. Maybe a new apartment in a different city. Maybe a job that did not require talking to many people. Maybe just something to help him stop thinking about the past. The internet was slow. It took a long time for websites to load. Marcus looked at apartments in different cities. Chicago was too big. Miami was too expensive. Seattle was too far away. Nothing felt right. Then Marcus clicked on a website about cheap land for sale. Most of it was farmland or empty lots. But one listing caught his eye. It was not land. It was an entire town. Ghost town for sale, the listing said. Millfield, Montana. Population, 0. Price, $100. Marcus stared at the screen. $100. For a whole town? That could not be real. He clicked on the listing to read more. The town had been empty since 1988. The copper mine that kept the town alive had closed down. All the people moved away to find work in other places. The town had 12 buildings and 40 acres of land. There was a main street, an old store, a school, and some houses. The pictures showed empty buildings with broken windows. Weeds grew in the streets. Paint was peeling off the walls. It looked like a place where people had given up hope and walked away. But something about it interested Marcus. Maybe it was the idea of being alone. Really alone. No neighbors to worry about, no traffic noise, no people asking questions he did not want to answer. The seller was an old man named Frank Wilson. He had inherited the town from his uncle 20 years ago. He had been paying taxes on it ever since, but he was too old now to take care of it. He just wanted someone to take it off his hands. Marcus read the listing 3 times. Then he read it again. A whole town for $100. It seemed too strange to be true. He looked at Rex, who was still sleeping. What would Rex think about living in a ghost town? Probably the same thing he thought about living anywhere else as long as Marcus was there. Marcus had been getting disability payments for 2 years. He had saved most of the money because he did not spend much. He had enough to buy the town and still have money left over to live on for a while. The more Marcus thought about it, the more it made sense. He could fix up one of the buildings to live in. He could have all the space he wanted. No landlord telling him what he could or could not do. No neighbors complaining about Rex barking. No one bothering him at all. Marcus found Frank Wilson's phone number on the listing. It was 7 in the morning in Montana. Too early to call, but Marcus wrote down the number anyway. He spent the rest of the morning reading about Millfield. The town had been built in 1923 when someone found copper in the mountains nearby. At its biggest, about 300 people lived there. They had a post office, a school, a general store, and even a small hospital. When the copper ran out, the mine company left. The jobs disappeared. People packed up their things and moved away to find work. By 1990, the town was completely empty. Marcus looked at more pictures of the town. The buildings looked sad and lonely, but they were still standing. Some had good roofs, some just needed windows and doors. It would be a lot of work to fix up, but Marcus liked working with his hands. It would give him something to do. At 10 o'clock Montana time, Marcus called Frank Wilson. The phone rang 4 times before an old man answered. Hello? Hi, Mr. Wilson. My name is Marcus Thompson. I saw your listing online about the town for sale. Oh, the ghost town. Yeah, Millfield. You interested in that old place? Maybe. Is it really for sale for $100? Frank laughed. Son, I've been trying to get rid of that place for 20 years. The taxes cost me more than that every year. If you want it, it's yours. But I should warn you, it's not in good shape. I understand. Can you tell me more about it? Frank talked for 30 minutes about the town. He had visited it a few times over the years. Most of the buildings were still solid, but they needed a lot of work. There was no electricity or water connected anymore. The nearest neighbor was 15 miles away. The nearest store was 30 miles away. It's pretty isolated out there, Frank said. Not much to do except look at mountains and sky. Why would you want to live in a place like that? Marcus thought about how to answer. He could not explain about the nightmares or the loneliness or the feeling that he did not fit anywhere anymore. I like quiet places, Marcus said. Well, it's quiet, all right. You sure about this? It's not like buying a house in the suburbs. I'm sure. Frank told Marcus he would need to come to Montana to sign the papers and get the deed. He could wire the money to Frank's bank account. The whole thing could be done in a few days. After Marcus hung up, he sat staring at the laptop screen. Had he really just agreed to buy a ghost town? It seemed crazy, but it also felt right in a way that nothing had felt right in a long time. Rex woke up and walked over to Marcus. The dog sensed that something was different. His tail wagged slowly as he looked up at Marcus. What do you think, boy? Want to live in our own town? Rex's tail wagged faster. He did not understand what Marcus was talking about, but he could tell that Marcus was excited about something. That was good enough for Rex. Marcus spent the rest of the day reading about Montana and ghost towns. He looked at maps to see how far Millfield was from other cities. He read about the weather and what it was like to live in the mountains. The more he learned, the more sure he became. This was what he needed, a place where he could start over, a place where no one knew about his past or his problems, a place where he and Rex could be alone until Marcus figured out how to be around people again. He called Frank Wilson back that afternoon. I want to do this, Marcus said. How soon can we make it happen? Give me a week to get the paperwork ready. You can wire me the money and I'll mail you the deed, or you can come out here and we can do it in person. Marcus thought about it. I'll come out there. I want to see the place before I own it. Fair enough. But like I said, don't expect much. It's been empty for a long time. That night, Marcus started packing. He did not have much stuff. Clothes, some books, Rex's food and toys, his laptop, and a few things that meant something to him. Everything fit in his pickup truck with room to spare. Marcus had bought the truck when he first came, back from Afghanistan. It was used but reliable. It had taken him to all his doctor appointments and job interviews. Now it would take him to his new life. He called his sister in California to tell her he was moving. She was worried. Moving where? Why? Marcus, this sounds crazy. I bought a town in Montana. You bought a what? Marcus explained about Millfield. His sister thought he had lost his mind. She wanted him to talk to his doctor before doing anything. She wanted him to think about it more. But Marcus had already made up his mind. For the first time in years, he felt like he was moving towards something instead of just running away from everything else. He did not tell his sister about the nightmares or the loneliness. He did not tell her that some days he forgot to eat because he was so lost in bad memories. He just told her he needed a change. 2 days later, Marcus loaded Rex into the truck and started driving west. He had 200 miles to go. The highway stretched out in front of them like a promise. Marcus had no idea what he would find in Millfield, but for the first time in a long time, he was looking forward to finding out. The truck's engine made a grinding noise as Marcus drove up the dirt road. He had been driving for 3 days to get to Montana. His back hurt and his eyes were tired, but he was almost there. Rex sat in the passenger seat, panting and looking out the window at the mountains. The GPS on Marcus's phone had stopped working 20 miles ago. Frank Wilson had given him directions written on a piece of paper. Turn left at the big rock that looks like a bear. Follow the dirt road for 8 miles. You can't miss it. Marcus was starting to think he had missed it. The dirt road seemed to go on forever. There were no houses or people anywhere, just mountains, trees, and empty land as far as he could see. Then he saw it, a wooden sign that said Millfield in faded letters. Some of the letters were missing. It looked like it had been there for a very long time. Marcus drove slowly down what used to be the main street. His heart sank as he got his first real look at his new home. The pictures online had not shown how bad things really were. The buildings were falling apart. Windows were broken or missing completely. Doors hung crooked on their hinges. Weeds grew everywhere, some of them taller than Marcus. He stopped the truck in front of what used to be the general store. This was supposed to be the best building in town. Frank Wilson had said Marcus could probably live in it without too much work. Marcus got out and looked around. The silence was complete. No cars, no people, no sounds except the wind and Rex panting. It was so quiet that Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. Rex jumped out of the truck and immediately started sniffing around. The dog seemed happy to be out of the truck after 3 days of driving. He ran from building to building, exploring his new home. Marcus walked up to the general store. The front door was missing. Inside, he could see shelves covered in dust and dirt. Animals had been living in there. There were holes in the floor and water damage on the walls. "What have I done?" Marcus said out loud. The sound of his own voice in the empty town made him feel even more alone, but he had driven 200 miles to get here. He had spent his last $100 to buy this place. There was no going back now. Marcus spent the rest of the day looking at all the buildings. The school had a tree growing through the roof. The old hospital was full of broken glass. Some of the houses had collapsed completely. The general store was still the best option. It had thick walls and most of the roof was still good. There was a basement that was dry. If Marcus could fix the windows and clean out the animals, he might be able to live there. That first night, Marcus slept in his truck. Rex slept in the back seat. It was October and the nights were getting cold. Marcus had brought a sleeping bag, but he was still freezing by morning. He needed to get the store fixed up fast. Winter was coming and he did not want to spend it sleeping in his truck. Marcus had brought some tools with him. He also had a chainsaw, a generator, and basic supplies. It was not much, but it was a start. The first thing he did was clear out the animals. Mice and rats had been living in the store for years. There were also bats in the attic and a family of raccoons in the basement. It took Marcus 3 days to clean out all the animal nests and droppings. Rex helped by chasing away the smaller animals. The dog seemed to understand that this was their home now and he needed to protect it. After the animals were gone, Marcus started on the windows. Most of them were broken. He had brought some plastic sheeting to cover the holes until he could get real glass. It was not pretty, but it would keep the wind out. The roof had several holes where water had been getting in. Marcus climbed up with his tools and patched what he could. He was not a professional, but he had learned some basic construction skills in the army. It took Marcus 2 weeks to make the store livable. He set up a small area in the back room with his sleeping bag and camping gear. He used the generator to power a few lights and a small heater. For water, Marcus had to drive 30 miles to the nearest town to fill up plastic containers. He used the water for drinking and cooking. For washing, he used water from a creek that ran behind the town. Food was also a problem. The nearest grocery store was 30 miles away. Marcus had brought some canned food and dry goods, but it would not last long. He needed to learn how to plan better. Rex seemed to be enjoying the new life. The dog had all the space he wanted to run and explore. There were rabbits and squirrels to chase. At night, Rex would lie next to Marcus and keep him warm. The first snowfall came in early November. Marcus woke up to find 6 inches of snow on the ground. The generator was harder to start in the cold. The plastic on the windows did not keep all the cold air out. Marcus realized he was not ready for winter. He needed more supplies, better heating, and warmer clothes. He made a list and drove to town to buy what he needed. The people in town looked at him strangely. Word had already spread about the crazy man who bought the ghost town. Some people were friendly and curious. Others seemed to think Marcus was dangerous or crazy. Marcus did not talk to many people. He bought what he needed and drove back to Millfield. He preferred being alone anyway. December was the hardest month. The temperature dropped below zero many nights. The generator broke down twice. Marcus had to fix it himself because there was no one else to call. The isolation was complete now. The road to town was sometimes blocked by snow for days at a time. Marcus and Rex were truly on their own. But something strange started to happen. Instead of feeling more lonely, Marcus began to feel peaceful. The nightmares came less often. He slept better in the quiet of the mountains. His hands stopped shaking as much. Working on the buildings gave Marcus something to focus on besides his memories. Every day there was something that needed to be fixed or cleaned. He was too busy to think about the war all the time. Rex was happier too. The dog had gained weight and his coat was shiny. He spent his days exploring and his nights keeping Marcus company. Rex never seemed lonely or bored. Marcus started working on other buildings. He cleaned out the old school and fixed some of the windows. He thought maybe he could use it for storage or a workshop. By January, Marcus had been in Millfield for 3 months. He had learned how to live without electricity most of the time. He had learned how to keep warm and find water. He had learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. The town was still mostly ruins, but it was his ruins now. Marcus felt a sense of ownership and pride that he had not felt in years. This was his place. No one could tell him what to do or how to live. Some days were still hard. Marcus would remember his friends who died in Afghanistan. He would think about his ex-wife and wonder if he could have done things differently. But these thoughts did not control him anymore. The quiet of the mountains seemed to absorb his sadness and fear. The work of fixing buildings gave his hands something to do, and his mind something to think about. Rex's constant companionship reminded him that he was not completely alone. One morning in late January, Marcus stood outside the general store drinking coffee and watching the sunrise over the mountains. The snow sparkled in the early light. Rex sat next to him, alert and content. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something like happiness. It was not the loud, excited happiness he remembered from before the war. It was quieter than that. It was the feeling of being in the right place, even if that place was a ghost town in the middle of nowhere. Marcus finished his coffee and went inside to start working on the day's projects. There was always something that needed to be done, but now that felt like a gift instead of a burden. He had found something he had not even known he was looking for. He had found peace. Marcus was on the roof of the old schoolhouse when he heard the sound. It was a low rumbling that got louder and louder. At first he thought it might be thunder, but the sky was clear and blue. Rex heard it too. The dog was standing in the street, Below, his ears pointed up and his head tilted to one side. Rex started barking, which he did not do very often anymore. Marcus climbed down from the roof and looked toward the dirt road that led to town. A cloud of dust was moving toward Millfield. As it got closer, Marcus could see what was making the noise. Motorcycles. A lot of them. Marcus felt his heart start beating faster. His hands began to shake. Who were these people? What did they want? Were they looking for trouble? Rex sensed Marcus's fear and moved closer to him. The dog's body was tense and ready. If Marcus needed protection, Rex would be there. The motorcycles came down the main street in a line. Marcus counted 12 of them. Big bikes with loud engines and riders wearing leather jackets. They looked like the kind of people Marcus had always tried to avoid. The lead rider stopped his bike in front of the general store where Marcus lived. He was an older man with gray hair and a beard. He took off his helmet and looked around at the empty buildings. "Well, I'll be damned," the man said. "This place really is a ghost town." The other riders stopped their bikes and got off. They were all different ages, but most of them looked to be over 40. Some had gray hair like the leader. Others were younger but had the same serious look in their eyes. Marcus stayed where he was near the schoolhouse. He was not sure if he should run or try to talk to them. His mouth felt dry and his palms were sweating. The leader noticed Marcus standing by the school. He walked over with his hands visible and empty. His movements were slow and calm. "You must be Marcus Thompson," the man said. "I'm Charlie Brennan. We've been looking for you." "Looking for me? Why?" Charlie smiled. "Word gets around in the veteran community. We heard about the guy who bought a ghost town for $100. Had to. Come see it for ourselves. You're veterans? All of us. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. We call ourselves the Iron Horse Riders. We take trips around the country visiting places with military history. When we heard about you, we had to make a detour." Marcus felt some of his fear go away, but he was still nervous. He had not talked to this many people at once in months. "How did you find me?" "Small towns talk. We stopped for gas in Billings and asked around. The guy at the gas station knew all about the crazy vet living in the ghost town." Rex walked over to Charlie and sniffed his hand. The dog seemed to decide Charlie was okay because his tail started wagging. Rex was usually a good judge of people. "That's a good-looking dog," Charlie said, scratching Rex behind the ears. "German Shepherd?" "Yeah, his name is Rex. He's my service dog." "Army trained?" "Yes." Charlie nodded. "I had a dog like that after Vietnam. Best friend I ever had." The other riders came over to introduce themselves. There was Tommy from Detroit who had lost his leg in Iraq. Sarah from Texas who had been a medic in Afghanistan. Mike from California who flew helicopters in Vietnam. Each one had a story. Each one had served their country and come home changed. Marcus found himself talking more than he had talked to anyone in months. These people understood things that other people did not understand. They knew what it was like to come back from war and feel like you did not fit anywhere. "So this is really your town?" asked Sarah, looking around at the empty buildings. "I guess so. I bought it fair and square. What are you planning to do with it?" Marcus had not thought much about the future. He had been too busy just surviving each day. "Fix it up, I suppose. Make it livable. All by yourself?" "Rex helps." Everyone laughed at that. Even Marcus smiled, which felt strange. He had not smiled much lately. Tommy walked over to look at the schoolhouse. "You know, this roof could be fixed pretty easy. The frame looks solid." "You know about construction?" Marcus asked. "I was a carpenter before I joined the army. Lost my leg, but not my skills." Sarah was looking at the old clinic building. "This could be a nice little medical facility with some work. I'm a nurse practitioner now." Before Marcus knew what was happening, the riders were walking around town and talking about all the things that could be done. They seemed excited about the possibilities. "We've got some time," Charlie said. "Our next stop isn't for a week. Mind if we camp here for a few days? We've got our own gear and supplies." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. He had gotten used to being alone. The idea of having 12 strangers in his town made him nervous, but something else was happening too. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. These people understood him in a way that doctors and counselors never had. "I guess that would be okay," Marcus said. The riders set up their tents in the empty lot next to the general store. They had camping gear and portable stoves. They were prepared to take care of themselves. That night, they built a fire in an old metal barrel. Everyone sat around it sharing stories and drinking coffee. Marcus listened mostly, but sometimes he found himself talking too. Charlie told stories about Vietnam that made everyone laugh. Tommy talked about learning to walk again after losing his leg. Sarah shared what it was like being one of the few women in a combat zone. Marcus told them about buying the town and his first winter there. He talked about Rex and how the dog had helped him more than any medicine ever had. "This place could be something special," Charlie said, looking around at the dark buildings. "A place where veterans could come to get away from everything, to remember who they were before the war messed them up." "You think other people would want to come here?" Marcus asked. "Are you kidding? You've got space, quiet, and freedom. That's what most of us are looking for." The next day, the riders started, working on the buildings without being asked. Tommy and 2 others began fixing the schoolhouse roof. Sarah and another rider cleaned out the old clinic. Mike, who knew about electrical work, looked at running power lines between buildings. Marcus watched them work and felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt useful. He felt like he was part of something bigger than just surviving each day. Rex seemed to enjoy having more people around. The dog went from person to person, getting attention and giving comfort to anyone who seemed to need it. By the 3rd day, the town looked different. The schoolhouse had a new roof. The clinic was clean and the windows were covered with plastic. Someone had cleared the weeds from the main street. "You've got a good thing starting here," Charlie told Marcus on their last night. "Don't let it go to waste." "What do you mean?" "I mean, don't hide out here forever. This place could help a lot of people if you let it." The riders left the next morning, but not before giving Marcus their contact information. They also left behind some tools and supplies. "Call us if you need anything," Charlie said as he put on his helmet. "And think about what I said. This place could be more than just a hideout." Marcus and Rex watched the motorcycles disappear down the dirt road. The town felt empty again, but it was a different kind of empty. It felt like a place waiting for something to happen. That night, Marcus sat by the fire barrel and thought about what Charlie had said. For months, Marcus had been focused on just getting by, just surviving each day. But maybe there was more he could do. He looked around at the buildings that had been cleaned and repaired. He thought about Tommy's missing leg and Sarah's stories, about treating wounded soldiers. He thought about Charlie's idea of a place where veterans could come to heal. Maybe Charlie was right. Maybe Millfield could be more than just Marcus's hiding place. Maybe it could be a place where people like him could find what they were looking for. Rex came over and lay down next to Marcus. The dog seemed to sense that Marcus was thinking about important things. "What do you think, boy?" Marcus asked. "Should we try to help other people?" Rex's tail wagged once as if he was saying yes. For the first time since buying the town, Marcus began to think about the future instead of just the next day. And for the first time in years, the future did not seem scary. It seemed full of possibilities. 3 weeks after the motorcycle riders left, Marcus heard another vehicle coming down the dirt road. This time it was just one car, driving slowly and carefully over the rough ground. Rex barked once to let Marcus know someone was coming, but his tail was wagging. The dog had learned to tell the difference between friendly visitors and potential trouble. Marcus put down the hammer he was using to fix a window frame and walked out to the main street. A small blue car stopped in front of the general store. The driver sat inside for a minute looking around at the buildings. The car door opened, and a woman got out. She was about Marcus's age, with short brown hair and tired eyes. She wore jeans and a worn-out jacket. She looked around the town like she could not believe what she was seeing. "Excuse me," she called out. "Are you Marcus Thompson?" "Yes." "Who are you?" "My name is Sarah Martinez. I heard about this place from Charlie Brennan. He said you might have room for someone who needs a place to stay. Marcus remembered Charlie mentioning that he might send other veterans to Millfield, but Marcus had not expected anyone to actually show up. You're a veteran? Army medic. 3 tours in Afghanistan. I've been having some problems since I got back. Marcus knew what kind of problems she meant. He could see it in her eyes and the way she held herself. The same look he saw in the mirror every morning. What kind of problems? Sarah looked down at her feet. I can't keep a job. I can't sleep. Sometimes I have panic attacks in crowds. My family thinks I should be over it by now. How long have you been out? 2 years. It's not getting better. Marcus felt Rex brush against his leg. The dog was reminding him that he was not alone anymore, that he could handle talking to someone new. I don't have much, Marcus said. No electricity most of the time. No running water. It gets cold in the winter. I don't need much. I just need a place where people won't look at me like I'm broken. Marcus understood that feeling. He looked around at the empty buildings and thought about how lonely the past few weeks had been after the riders left. There's a building down the street. That might work. It used to be a doctor's office. The roof is good and it has a wood stove for heat. Sarah's face brightened for the first time since she arrived. Really? You don't mind if I stay? We can try it for a while. See how it goes. Sarah brought 2 duffel bags and a cardboard box from her car. That was all she owned. Marcus helped her carry her things to the old clinic building. The building was cleaner than it had been before the riders worked on it, but it still needed a lot of work. There were holes in the walls and the windows were covered with plastic sheets instead of glass. It's perfect, Sarah said, and Marcus could tell she meant it. Over the next few days, Marcus and Sarah worked together to make the clinic livable. Sarah turned out to be handy with tools. She had learned basic construction skills in the Army, just like Marcus had. They patched holes in the walls and put in a proper door. Marcus showed Sarah how to work the wood stove and where to get water from the creek. Sarah shared her food supplies and helped Marcus cook better meals than he had been eating. Rex seemed happy to have another person around. The dog split his time between Marcus and Sarah, making sure both of them were okay. Sarah did not talk much about her time in the Army at first, but after a few days, she started sharing small pieces of her story. She had been a medic in a field hospital. She had seen soldiers come in with terrible injuries. She had saved some lives and lost others. The worst part, she said one night as they sat by the fire barrel, is that everyone expects you to be fine once you come home. They think you should just forget about everything and go back to normal life. There is no normal anymore, Marcus said. At least not the same normal as before. Exactly. But try explaining that to your family. Marcus understood. His sister still called sometimes, asking when he was going to get a real job and move back to civilization. She did not understand that this was his real life now. 2 weeks after Sarah arrived, another car came down the dirt road. This time, it was a pickup truck with a trailer attached. The driver was a man about 50 years old with no legs below the knees. He got out of the truck using a wheelchair. You must be Marcus, the man said. I'm Tom Rodriguez. Charlie Brennan told me about this place. Tom had been a Navy construction engineer before an IED explosion took both his legs. He had been struggling to find work and a place to live since leaving the military hospital. I heard you might have use for someone who knows how to build things, Tom said. Marcus looked at Tom's wheelchair and wondered how he could help with construction work, but Tom seemed to read his mind. Don't worry about the chair, Tom said. I can do more work sitting down than most people can do standing up. Tom was right. Within days, he had rigged up a workshop in one of the empty buildings. He had brought tools and equipment in his trailer. Soon, he was building tables, chairs, and shelves for the growing community. Sarah helped Tom set up his living space in a building next to his workshop. She also started organizing the clinic space, thinking about how it could be used to help people. We should have basic medical supplies, she told Marcus. First aid kits, medicines, things like that. People are going to get hurt working on these old buildings. Marcus had not thought about that, but Sarah was right. He was learning that running a community Even a small one required planning for things he had never considered. A month later, another person arrived. Her name was Elena Vasquez, and she was different from the others. She was younger, maybe 25, and she looked like she had been living on the streets. Her clothes were dirty, and she was very thin. Elena had been a Marine. She had been homeless since leaving the service 6 months ago. She had heard about Millfield through a network of homeless veterans who shared information about safe places to stay. "I don't have any money," Elena said, "and I don't have any skills that would help you, but I'm not afraid of hard work." Marcus was starting to understand that everyone who came to Millfield brought something valuable, even if it was not obvious at first. Elena might not have construction skills or medical training, but she had survived on the streets. She knew how to find food, how to stay safe, and how to read people. Elena also had something else that surprised Marcus. She was good at talking to people. Within a week, she had organized the others into work teams and helped them communicate better with each other. "You're like the town manager," Sarah told her. "I never thought of it that way," Elena said. "I just like making sure everyone is okay." By the end of spring, 5 people lived in Millfield. Marcus, Sarah, Tom, Elena, and of course Rex. Each person had their own building, but they worked together during the day and often ate dinner together around the fire barrel. The town was starting to look like a real place again. Tom had built a solar panel system that provided electricity to the main buildings. Sarah had set up a proper clinic with medical supplies. Elena had organized a storage system for food and supplies. Marcus had fixed most of the major problems with the buildings, but the most important change was not in the buildings. It was in the people. Marcus still had bad dreams sometimes, but they came less often. Sarah's panic attacks were getting better. Tom had found purpose in his building projects. Elena had stopped looking over her shoulder all the time. Rex seemed to understand that he was no longer just Marcus's dog. He was the town dog now. The big German shepherd made rounds every day, checking on everyone and making sure they were all okay. One evening, as they sat around the fire barrel sharing dinner, Sarah asked a question that had been on everyone's mind. "What are we doing here? I mean, what is this place becoming?" Marcus thought about it. 6 months ago, he had been alone and hopeless in a Detroit apartment. Now he was part of something that felt like a family. "I think we're building something new," he said. "A place where people like us can figure out how to live again." "Should we make it official somehow?" Tom asked. "Like register as a nonprofit or something?" "That's getting ahead of ourselves," Marcus said. "Let's just see what happens." But privately, Marcus was starting to think that maybe this was bigger than just a few veterans helping each other. Maybe Charlie had been right. Maybe Millfield could be a place that helped a lot of people. That night, Marcus lay in his bed listening to the quiet sounds of the town. He could hear Tom working late in his shop. He could hear Sarah reading in her clinic. He could hear Elena organizing supplies in the storage building. For the first time since coming home from Afghanistan, Marcus felt like he was part of something important. He was not just surviving anymore. He was building something that mattered. Rex slept on the floor next to Marcus's bed, content and peaceful. The dog had found his purpose too. He was taking care of his people, all of them. Marcus closed his eyes and fell asleep easily. No nightmares came that night. Just dreams of the future, and all the possibilities it might hold. Marcus was fixing a broken fence when the county truck pulled up to the main street. He had been expecting this visit for weeks. Word was getting around about the veterans living in the ghost town, and not all of it was good. A man in a county uniform got out of the truck. He carried a clipboard and had the serious look of someone who was there on official business. Rex trotted over to see who was visiting, but stayed close to Marcus. "Are you Marcus Thompson?" the man asked. "Yes. I'm Bill Crawford from the county building department. We need to talk." Marcus set down his tools and walked over to meet the inspector. Sarah came out of the clinic when she heard voices. Tom rolled his wheelchair out of his workshop. Elena appeared from behind one of the buildings where she had been working in the garden. "What can I do for you?" Marcus asked. Crawford looked around at the buildings and the people. "We've been getting reports about this place. People living in buildings that aren't up to code. No proper permits for construction work. We need to do an inspection. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had known this day would come, but he had hoped they would have more time to get things organized. These buildings have been empty for 30 years, Marcus said. We're just trying to make them livable. That's the problem. You can't just move into any old building. There are codes and regulations, safety requirements. You need permits for electrical work, plumbing, major repairs. Crawford pulled out his clipboard and started walking around the town. He made notes about everything he saw. The solar panels Tom had installed, the wood stoves they used for heat, the way they had patched holes in walls and roofs. This electrical work, Crawford said, pointing at Tom's solar setup. Was this done by a licensed electrician? I did it myself, Tom said. I know what I'm doing. Are you licensed in Montana? Well, no, but Crawford made more notes. And these wood stoves, are they properly vented? Do you have smoke detectors? Fire extinguishers? The inspection went on for 2 hours. Crawford found problems with almost everything they had done. Some of the issues were real safety concerns. Others seemed like bureaucratic nitpicking. Look, Crawford said when he was finished. I understand what you're trying to do here. But you can't just ignore building codes because you're veterans. These rules exist to keep people safe. What do we need to do? Marcus asked. Crawford handed him a thick stack of papers. These are violation notices. You have 30 days to fix the major safety issues, 60 days to get proper permits for the electrical and construction work. If you don't comply, we'll have to shut you down. After Crawford left, the group gathered around the fire barrel to read through the violation notices. The list was long and expensive. They needed licensed electricians to redo Tom's solar work. They needed building permits for almost every repair they had made. They needed fire safety equipment and proper septic systems. How much is all this going to cost? Elena asked. Tom did some quick math on a piece of paper. At least $50,000, maybe more. We don't have that kind of money, Sarah said. Marcus felt like the walls were closing in around him. For the first time in months, his hands started shaking. The peaceful feeling he had worked so hard to build was slipping away. Maybe we should just give up, he said. Pack up and leave before they force us out. No, Elena said firmly. This is our home now. We can't just walk away. But even as Elena spoke, Marcus could see doubt in everyone's eyes. The county's demands seemed impossible to meet. They were just a few veterans trying to get by, not a rich development company. The stress of the situation started affecting everyone. Sarah's panic attacks came back. Tom worked longer hours in his shop, trying to avoid thinking about the problems. Elena snapped at people over small things. Marcus started having trouble sleeping again. Rex sensed the tension in the town. The dog spent his days going from person to person, trying to comfort everyone. But even Rex could not fix the legal and financial problems they were facing. 2 weeks after the county inspection, things got worse. Elena had one of her worst episodes since arriving in Millfield. She had been having nightmares about her time in the Marines, but she had been hiding how bad they were getting. One night, Marcus woke up to the sound of screaming. He ran outside and found Elena in the middle of the street, yelling at someone who was not there. She was holding a piece of broken glass and looked ready to hurt herself. Sarah got to Elena first. She talked to her in a calm, steady voice while slowly moving closer. Tom called out from his doorway, asking if he should call for help. Elena, you're safe, Sarah said. You're in Millfield with your friends. The war is over. It took 20 minutes to calm Elena down. She dropped the glass and collapsed on the ground, crying. Sarah held her while Marcus and Tom stood by, not knowing what to do. I'm sorry, Elena said over and over. I'm so sorry. You don't have anything to be sorry for, Sarah said. We're going to get through this. But Marcus was not sure they would get through it. Elena's episode had scared all of them. They were not trained counselors or doctors. What if someone got seriously hurt? What if Elena hurt herself the next time? The next morning, Elena was quiet and embarrassed. She wanted to leave Millfield before she caused more problems. I'm not safe to be around, she said. You all have enough to worry about without taking care of me. We're not giving up on you, Marcus said, but maybe we need to get some professional help. That was another problem. The nearest mental health clinic was 60 miles away. None of them had good insurance, and even if they could afford professional help, how would they get there regularly? Marcus started to realize that good intentions were not enough. When it was just him and Rex living in a falling-down building, they could ignore safety codes and get by with basic supplies. But now they had other people depending on them. They had responsibilities they were not prepared for. The county problems and Elena's episode made Marcus question everything they were trying to do. Maybe they were just a group of broken veterans playing house in an abandoned town. Maybe they had no business trying to help each other when they could barely help themselves. Sarah seemed to read his thoughts. "You're thinking about giving up, aren't you?" "I don't know what I'm thinking. This is all getting too complicated." "It's supposed to be complicated. We're trying to build something real here. Real things are always complicated." "But what if we can't handle it? What if someone gets hurt because we don't know what we're doing?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Then we learn. We get help. We figure it out as we go. The county wants $50,000 in fixes. Then we find $50,000. How? I don't know yet. But I know we can't just quit." That night, Marcus sat outside with Rex and thought about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, he had been alone and hopeless. Now he had friends, purpose, and responsibility. The responsibility part was harder than he had expected. Rex put his head on Marcus's knee just like he used to do in the Detroit apartment. But this time Marcus was not thinking about the past. He was thinking about the future and all the people who were depending on him to make good decisions. Marcus realized that leadership was not something he had asked for, but it was something he had to accept. Elena, Sarah, and Tom were looking to him for answers. He did not have all the answers, but maybe that was okay. Maybe none of them had to have all the answers as long as they worked together. The next morning, Marcus gathered everyone around the fire barrel. Even Elena came, looking tired but determined to stay and fight. "We need to make some decisions," Marcus said. "We can try to meet the county's demands and find ways to get professional help when we need it. Or we can pack up and go our separate ways." "I vote to stay," Sarah said immediately. "Me too," said Tom. Elena looked around at the buildings they had worked so hard to repair. "This is the first place I've felt safe since leaving the Marines. I want to stay too." "Then we stay," Marcus said. "But we do this right. We find legitimate ways to fund the improvements. We get proper training for dealing with mental health crises. We build something that can really help people, not just something that makes us feel better for a while." It was a big commitment. Marcus was not sure they could pull it off, but as he looked around at his friends in the town they had started to rebuild, he knew they had to try. Rex wagged his tail as if he approved of the decision. The dog had watched his pack grow from one lonely man to a small community. Now they would find out if that community was strong enough to survive the challenges ahead. The filmmaker arrived on a Tuesday morning in late spring. Marcus heard the car coming down the dirt road and looked out to see a small SUV with California license plates. He had been expecting this visit, but he was still nervous about it. A woman in her 30s got out of the car with cameras and recording equipment. She had contacted Marcus 3 weeks earlier after hearing about Millfield through the Veteran Network. Her name was Lisa Chen, and she made documentary films about people doing unusual things. "This place is exactly like I imagined," Lisa said, looking around at the buildings and mountains. "It's perfect." Marcus was not sure if being perfect for a documentary was a good thing or a bad thing. He had agreed to let Lisa film their story because Sarah convinced him it might help them raise money for the county requirements. But Marcus did not like being the center of attention. Rex trotted over to greet Lisa. The dog had become the unofficial welcome committee for all visitors to Millfield. Lisa scratched his ears and smiled. "So you're the famous Rex. I've heard a lot about you." Over the next week, Lisa filmed everything. She interviewed each resident about their background and why they came to Millfield. She recorded them working on buildings, cooking meals together, and sitting around the fire barrel in the evenings. Marcus was uncomfortable being on camera at first. He did not like talking about his time in Afghanistan or his struggles with PTSD, but Lisa was patient and gentle with her questions. She seemed to understand that these were difficult topics. "Why did you decide to buy a ghost town?" Lisa asked during one interview. Marcus thought about how to answer. "I needed to get away from everything. This seemed like the farthest away I could get. But now you have other people here. You're not alone anymore." "No, I'm not alone, but it's different now. We're all here by choice, not because we have to be." Lisa also interviewed the others. Sarah talked about her work as a medic and how hard it was to come home to a world that did not understand what she had been through. Tom discussed losing his legs and learning to build a new life from a wheelchair. Elena shared her experience of being homeless and finding family in Millfield. The most powerful interview was with Elena. She had been reluctant to talk on camera, but Lisa convinced her that her story could help other veterans who were struggling. "I thought I was broken beyond repair," Elena said. "I had been sleeping in shelters and on the streets for months. I thought that was all I was good for anymore." "What changed when you came here?" "People saw me as a person, not just as a problem to be solved. They gave me work to do that mattered. They trusted me to help make decisions about our community." Lisa spent a lot of time filming Rex. The dog seemed to understand that he was important to the story. He posed patiently while Lisa recorded him making his daily rounds, checking on each resident. "Rex is like the heart of this place," Lisa said to Marcus. "He connects everyone together. He's been doing that for me since I got him. Now he just has more people to take care of." While Lisa was filming, something unexpected happened. A group of college students arrived for a visit. They were studying social work and had heard about Millfield through one of their professors. "We're writing papers about alternative approaches to veteran care," one of the students explained. "Our professor thought we should see what you're doing here." Marcus felt overwhelmed. He was not used to being seen as an expert on anything, but Sarah stepped in and gave the students a tour of the town. She explained how they had set up the clinic and organized their daily routines. "The key is that everyone contributes something," Sarah told the students. "We're not just taking care of each other, we're building something together." The students were impressed by what they saw. They asked thoughtful questions about funding, mental health support, and long-term sustainability. Some of their questions were ones that Marcus and the others had not thought about yet. "What's your plan for growth?" one student asked. "What happens if more veterans want to come here than you can accommodate?" Marcus realized they needed better plans for the future. They had been focused on just getting by day to day. But if their story was going to be in a documentary, more people would learn about Millfield. They needed to be ready for that attention. After Lisa finished filming, she stayed for a few extra days to help with grant applications. She had experience with fundraising for nonprofit organizations and offered to help them apply for money to meet the county's requirements. "Your story is compelling," Lisa told them, "but foundations want to see that you have a solid plan and proper organization." Sarah took the lead on forming a nonprofit organization. She had been thinking about this for months and had already done research on the legal requirements. They decided to call it Veterans Haven, with a mission of providing housing and support for veterans transitioning back to civilian life. Tom designed a website and created a business plan for sustainability. Elena worked on policies for accepting new residents and handling crisis situations. Marcus reluctantly agreed to be the official director of the organization. "I don't know how to run a nonprofit," Marcus protested. "None of us do," Sarah said. "We'll learn together." The grant applications were complicated and time-consuming. They had to provide detailed budgets, background checks, references, and plans for everything from fire safety to mental health protocols. "I had no idea there was so much paperwork involved in helping people," Elena said as she worked on the residency policies. But slowly, things started to come together. A local contractor agreed to do some of the county-required work at a reduced rate. A mental health clinic in Billings offered to provide counseling services through video calls. A veterans organization donated fire safety equipment. The biggest breakthrough came when Lisa's documentary was selected for a film festival in Denver. The exposure brought attention to Veterans Haven from organizations that funded veteran services. "We've got our first major grant," Sarah announced one morning. $50,000 from the Montana Veterans Foundation. It was exactly the amount they needed to satisfy the county's requirements. Marcus could hardly believe it. 6 months ago, he had been a lonely veteran living in a falling-down building. Now he was the director of a legitimate nonprofit organization. But with success came new challenges. The grant money came with reporting requirements and oversight. They had to track how the money was spent and prove that their programs were effective. "We need to be more professional about everything," Sarah explained. "We can't just wing it anymore." They hired a part-time accountant to manage the finances. They created formal procedures for accepting new residents. They established partnerships with professional counselors and medical providers. The changes were necessary, but sometimes Marcus missed the simplicity of the early days. When it was just him and Rex, he did not have to worry about board meetings and budget reports. "You're thinking about the old days again," Elena said one evening as they sat around the fire barrel. "Sometimes. It was easier when we didn't have to answer to anyone. But we couldn't help as many people then, and we couldn't help them as well as we can now." Elena was right. The new structure and funding allowed Veterans Haven to accept more residents and provide better support services. They now had proper crisis intervention protocols and professional mental health support. Rex seemed to adapt to the changes better than Marcus did. The dog still made his daily rounds, but now he had more people to check on. 3 new residents had arrived in the past month, and Rex had appointed himself as their guide and protector. One evening, as Marcus was reviewing grant reports, Lisa called with news about her documentary. "It's been accepted into 3 more film festivals," she said, "and a streaming service wants to license it for national distribution." "What does that mean for us?" "It means a lot more people are going to learn about Veterans Haven. You should be ready for more visitors, more funding opportunities, and probably more residents." After hanging up, Marcus walked outside to look at the town he had bought for $100. The buildings were in good repair now. Solar panels glinted on the roofs. Gardens grew between the houses. It looked like a real community. Rex joined him in the street, as he always did during Marcus's evening walks. The dog was getting older and grayer, but he still took his responsibilities seriously. "We've come a long way, haven't we, boy?" Marcus said. Rex wagged his tail and looked up at Marcus with the same loyal expression he had worn in that Detroit apartment years ago. But now there was something else in the dog's eyes. Contentment, purpose, the satisfaction of a job well done. Marcus realized he felt the same way. He had found something he had not even known he was looking for, not just a home but a calling, not just survival, but meaning. The documentary would bring more attention, more residents, and more challenges. But Marcus was no longer afraid of the future. He had learned that building something worthwhile was hard work, but it was work worth doing, and he was not doing it alone anymore. He had Sarah's medical expertise, Tom's building skills, and Elena's organizational talents. Most importantly, he had Rex's unwavering loyalty and love. Together they had turned a ghost town into a place of hope, and they were just getting started. 3 years after buying Millfield for $100, Marcus stood on the main street watching children play hopscotch where weeds used to grow. The sight still amazed him. Real children with real laughter, bringing life to a place that had been dead for so long. Some of the children belonged to veterans who had brought their families to live at Veterans Haven. Others were visiting with school groups that came to learn about military service and community building. All of them seemed to love the wide-open spaces and the freedom to explore. Rex watched the children too, but from a comfortable spot in the shade. The German Shepherd was 8 years old now, with gray fur around his muzzle and slower movements. But his eyes were still alert, still watching over everyone in his extended pack. "He's training the younger dogs well," Sarah said, joining Marcus on the street. 2 new therapy dogs had joined the Veterans Haven family in the past year. Rex had taken it upon himself to teach them the routines of community life. Where to find the people who needed extra comfort, how to sense when someone was having a bad day, when to offer playful distraction and when to provide quiet companionship. He's a good teacher, Marcus agreed. He learned from the best. Sarah smiled. She had become the unofficial coordinator of Veterans Haven's mental health programs. Her background as an Army medic, combined with additional training she had received through their nonprofit partnerships, made her perfect for the role. The new family is settling in well, Sarah said, referring to a veteran and his wife and 2 children who had arrived the week before. The kids are excited about having other children to play with. Veterans Haven now housed 23 permanent residents in various stages of their recovery and transition. Some stayed for a few months while they got back on their feet. Others, like Marcus and the original group, had made it their permanent home. The town looked completely different from the collection of ruins Marcus had first seen. Professional contractors, working with Tom's guidance, had restored most of the original buildings. New construction had added a proper medical clinic, a workshop complex, and family housing units. Solar panels and wind turbines provided clean electricity. A modern water treatment system supplied running water to all the buildings. High-speed internet, installed the previous year, connected the remote community to the outside world. But the most important changes were not in the buildings. They were in the people. Marcus no longer woke up every night from nightmares. He still had difficult days sometimes, but he had learned healthy ways to cope with them. More importantly, he had found purpose in helping other veterans find their own paths to healing. Elena walked over from the administrative building where she now worked as Veterans Haven's program coordinator. She carried a tablet computer and had the focused look of someone managing a busy schedule. The documentary crew from the educational series will be here next week, she told Marcus. And the State Veterans Department wants to schedule another site visit to discuss expanding our funding. The success of Lisa Chen's documentary had led to more media attention and more opportunities. Veterans Haven had become a model for similar programs in other states. Delegations of social workers, government officials, and veteran advocates visited regularly to learn about their approach. Sometimes I miss when we were just a secret, Marcus said. But then we couldn't help as many people, Elena replied. She had used this argument before when Marcus felt overwhelmed by the attention. Elena was right, as usual. The publicity had brought resources that allowed Veterans Haven to help more veterans and their families. It had also brought legitimacy and respect from organizations that had once been skeptical of their unconventional approach. Tom rolled his wheelchair out of the workshop complex, covered in sawdust and looking satisfied. His carpentry skills had evolved into teaching vocational rehabilitation. Veterans who came to Haven could learn construction, solar installation, organic farming, and other practical skills. The new workshop space is almost finished, Tom announced. We'll be able to teach metalworking and automotive repair by the end of the month. The expansion had been funded by a combination of grants, donations, and revenue from products made in the workshops. Veterans Haven had become partially self-sustaining through the furniture, crafts, and solar installations they produced and sold. Any word from Charlie? Marcus asked. Charlie Brennan and his Iron Horse riders had become regular visitors and unofficial ambassadors for Veterans Haven. They helped spread the word about the program during their travels and had recruited several residents over the years. He's bringing a group through next month, Elena said. 15 riders this time, including some new faces who want to see what we're doing here. Marcus walked over to the memorial garden that had been built behind the old schoolhouse. It honored veterans who had died by suicide or were still missing and presumed dead. Rex followed slowly, understanding that this was one of Marcus's quiet places. The garden had been Elena's idea, supported enthusiastically by everyone else. It provided a space for grief and remembrance, while also celebrating the lives that had been saved and rebuilt at Veterans Haven. Marcus stopped at a bench dedicated to the members of his unit who had not made it home from Afghanistan. He still thought about them often, but the thoughts no longer brought only pain. Now they also brought gratitude for the chance to honor their memory by helping other veterans. A young woman approached the garden carrying flowers. She was Maria Santos, a Navy veteran who had arrived at Veterans Haven 3 months earlier. She was placing flowers at a memorial stone for her brother, who had taken his own life after struggling with PTSD. "How are you doing today?" Marcus asked gently. "Better," Maria said. The counseling sessions are helping, and working in the greenhouse gives me something positive to focus on. Maria had started an organic farming program that supplied fresh vegetables to the community and local restaurants. Like many residents, she had discovered talents and interests she never knew she had. "Your brother would be proud of what you're building here," Marcus said. "I think so too. He always said I was good at making things grow." As they walked back toward the main street, Marcus reflected on how much his understanding of healing had changed. When he first came to Millfield, he thought healing meant forgetting the past and starting over. Now he understood that healing meant learning to carry the past in a way that did not destroy the future. Rex had taught him that lesson, along with many others. The dog had never tried to erase Marcus's trauma or make his memories go away. Instead, Rex had simply been present, offering companionship and comfort while Marcus learned to live with his experiences. Now Marcus was able to offer that same kind of presence to other veterans, not as a trained therapist, but as someone who understood the journey from isolation to community, from despair to purpose. Sarah joined them as they reached the main street. "The state evaluation team was impressed by our success rates," she said. 87% of our residents report significant improvement in their mental health after 6 months here." "Numbers are good," Marcus said, "but what matters more is that people are finding their way back to life." The evening routine was beginning. Residents gathered around picnic tables for dinner cooked in the community kitchen. Children helped set tables, while adults shared stories about their day. Rex made his rounds, accepting pets and treats from everyone. After dinner, some people went to workshops or counseling sessions. Others participated in recreational activities like hiking, fishing, or stargazing. The evening fire barrel remained popular, though it was now accompanied by comfortable seating and electric lighting. Marcus found himself at the fire barrel with the original group: Sarah, Tom, Elena, and of course Rex. They did not gather there every night anymore, but when they did, it felt like coming home to family. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't bought this place?" Sarah asked. Marcus considered the question. "I try not to think about that. It's too scary." "I think about it sometimes," Elena said. "I was heading toward a very dark place when I found this community. I don't know if I would have survived much longer on the streets. We all saved each other," Tom said. "That's what family does." Rex lifted his head from his comfortable position by the fire. His hearing was not as sharp as it used to be, but he seemed to sense that his people were talking about important things. His tail thumped once against the ground. "He's the one who really saved us all," Marcus said, scratching behind Rex's ears. "He taught me that healing happens in relationship with others, not in isolation." As the fire burned lower, residents began heading to their homes. Veterans Haven had quiet hours after 10 p.m. to ensure everyone could sleep peacefully. The policy had been Elena's suggestion after she realized how important good sleep was to mental health recovery. Marcus and Rex walked their familiar route through the town before going to bed. It was a habit they had maintained since the early days when it was just the two of them in an empty ghost town. Now their walk took them past homes where families were getting children ready for bed, past workshops where the next day's projects waited, past the clinic where Sarah kept supplies, ready for any emergency, past the garden where vegetables grew in neat rows under the Montana sky.